It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! Yeah, last week somebody noticed that I actually tried to sing properly in the Feedback Friday thing, so now I feel pressured to do it. I am of the Steve Martin school of there's a difference between singing and singing funny, and so Feedback Friday is singing funny. But I digress. There's a lot to get through, and I don't want to belabor a lot of it. There were over 1,000 comments generated this week. There is absolutely no way. Actually, over 1,200 comments generated this week. I'm, like I said in the video, I wasn't maybe not going to do a Feedback Friday, but the comments were in bounds enough that I feel like I should reward you guys for keeping a basic level of adulting. I won't say civility because I don't want to contradict myself later, but even when people were uncivil or condescending or missed the point, I felt like I was talking to an adult, not a troll who just wanted to fling naughty words. And that's fair. You know, I don't care if somebody gets angry at me or claims I triggered them or whatever, but, you know, as per usual, someone said I triggered them and then didn't say why. They just went on to argue with me, but it's like, you know, a trigger is a really real thing. It ain't just getting your feelings hurt. And, you know, you guys who watch my content should know I take that very seriously. I don't like the overuse of the word trigger. I was just in I was supporting one of, you know, my other friends with PTSD, and he actually got triggered in a therapy session. So this is raw for me right now. That is not a joke, and I am tired of people throwing that word around too much. But I am going to try to get through this as succinctly as possible and try to reward the positive instead of dwelling on the portion of people who are just never going to get it because they don't want to. I was not surprised by the negativity I received this week, except in one case. I was not surprised by the negativity I received on the Jordan Peterson video, Comes to the Territory. I was not surprised by the negativity I've received on Why Do You Care That There Are Only Two Genders, Comes to the Territory. I was really surprised on how many people got angry at me about Deadpool, but hold that thought. And it wasn't too many people. It's just the people who got angry got really angry. And I want to be careful not to seem to be laughing at somebody's legitimate feelings, but at the same time, you know that thing where something is so uncomfortable that all you can do is laugh? Because, oh my God, dude, you are losing your shit over Deadpool 2. No matter how you want to wrap it up in any way, you're losing your shit over Deadpool 2. That's kind of funny. I'm a bit of an asshole for thinking that, but at least I'm an honest asshole. And that is that's a segue into, this has become Inception with certain people who revere Jordan Peterson. And revere is the only word I can think of because no matter how many times I say, I don't think the New York Times piece was fair. However, we have to accept as accurate the quotes until he says otherwise. And I did not like the indirect way he hinted at something of a twisting of his words without actually breaking. He was happy to quote generalities from some, you know, study in 1958, but he didn't actually say what the New York Times article got wrong, in his opinion. That's frustrating. Because if they did misquote him, it's wrong, and I want to be able to defend him on that point. I just don't know what it was. So we have to take as valid the quotes. Yeah, they smeared him in the presentation of those quotes, but the quotes themselves, we have to accept are accurate. And there were some people in the comments where I just can't believe he'd say that. well, then you're just dismissing facts that don't fit your opinion of the guy. You know, the reality is the guy's all over the place. He does have a tendency towards public flashes of anger. He is in himself not somebody who can remain calm when challenged. And none of this is bad. It just goes against the sort of superior being stance that some of his, online translators take when they go, Leanna, you can do better. I expected better from you. I actually got that in the comments. I actually did, that I can do better. It wasn't necessarily my best video ever. I mean, the Lady Bits videos are far better produced. So yeah, objectively, I can do better. But this, you can do better. Why? Because I can't pull the dozens of hours of Jordan Peterson content I have forced myself to watch to give the guy a chance in a single video under 30 minutes. No, I am not the freaking Flash. I can't do it. And this idea that I am somehow disappointing someone, that I happen to agree that this guy is one of the greatest thinkers of our age. I don't have to think he's the greatest thinkers of our age to think that he has some solid points on certain things. When he starts talking about mythic structure or the way mythic stories are used in the West, he's right on point. I really thought I would have preferred an entire article on his idea that myths become real because people believe in them. I would prefer a lot more of that. I don't want to hear his opinions on the Toronto van attacks because nobody knows what the motive was. And anybody who has actually been following the thing knows that the whole incel connection is speculative. We don't know. So if I'm supposed to treat him as a fact-based academic, I have to check him on that. That's not me not living up to the task. I'm forced into it by the facts. And I can't take people very seriously like, you can do better. And then there were actually people who commented, not to be the Jordan Peterson online translation service, but I think you're misunderstanding him. Didn't I say that my issue with him is that his manner of speaking is practically calibrated to be misunderstood? And I mean, I'm someone who has had my own words taken out of context in the past. Wildly out of context. You know what I didn't get? The benefit of the doubt that you're asking me to give this guy. At the time, it was, your words matter and you should have spoken more carefully. You can do better. And now that I'm saying, he should have chose his words better based on, at this point, he has enough experience with the media to know this is going to happen. Then it's, you can do better. So the rules are not the same for everybody. And I have an issue with that. Yes, that frustrates me. That certain people get more of a pass than other people, that bothers me. And these Peterson sycophants, and sorry, you are a sycophant when you will not listen to the other side. They are not listening to the people who are saying, hey, if he helps you, that's awesome. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. But I still reserve the right to think some of the things he says are kind of sexist and kind of racist. That was another comment. I do think that what I will say is that some of his statements are easily interpreted as sexist and racist. And it's one of those things where if he is bothered by those criticisms, which he certainly seems to be, then he should ironically choose his words more precisely so that he is less misunderstood. If he's going to continue to communicate in academic jargon that most of the population doesn't understand, then yeah, he's going to be misunderstood. And that is his choice to make. If he continues to make that choice, I'm tired of him getting offended that people took the wrong meaning from what he said. They were going to certain terms mean different things out of an academic sphere. When you use the word enforced, to most people, it sounds like law enforcement. enforcement of rules. It doesn't sound like peer pressure or social pressure, which is how a layman talks about these things. And when I am imprecise, as I was last week when I mentioned Christian pacifism, I was like, okay, fair enough. I should be more. I didn't realize the level that people were at. That's all you have to do. And Peterson doesn't do that. And that's why that's pretty much the main reason I can't throw my arms around the guy. He doesn't display a lot of accountability that he is willing to take the lumps that come with the way he chooses to communicate in public. Now, I was well aware that I was going to take some heat for my comments about Jordan Peterson, but again, I'm not going to come here and go rah about it because I knew it was coming. I made an informed choice. I made decisions despite the negative consequences. I'm not going to piss and moan about something I knew was going to happen. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the amount of support I got, the number of people who, well, support isn't right, agreement. But the number of people who were like, yeah, he's kind of jumped the shark or yeah. And it's really too bad that it's become this cult of personality phenomenon, because the guy seems so jittery at the Monk debate. He was too easy to anger. The fact that he actually admitted he's a mean person at the debate, like there was a really awkward moment where what's his name, Michael Eric Dyson, the postmodernist academic who happens to be a black man, referred at one point in a heated exchange, it had already been heated, he referred to Jordan Peterson as a mean, mad white man. And Peterson copped to being mean, okay, said nothing about being mad, and was offended that the guy referred to his race. And that made me really think, because to me, I would be much more pissed off that somebody was implying that I was insane, because that's the reference. It's like mad, bad, and dangerous to know, like you're crazy. I would be much more bothered by the idea that somebody was calling me crazy because I had opinions that differed from theirs than the objective truth that I am white. Just me. But Peterson really, I mean, he was shaking. He was so angry about the invocation of his race, but he admitted to being mean. And this is another one of these contradictions with him, is if you're mean, how you know you're a mean person? He actually said, I might be a mean person. If you are aware of that, how can you get angry? Like, you really can't fairly get angry that other people are mean to you. You are no better. You lose your right to complain. Like, you are asking other people to be better than you. That's not fair. So if Peterson accepts for himself that he is a mean person, I don't know how then you complain about people being mean as well. And that's basically what, mischaracterizing or oversimplifying. And yes, I think Jessica Valenti was way off base calling him rapey. I think you have to be very careful when you call someone that, and Valenti's not. I don't think that is a fair thing to assert about Jordan Peterson. There are a lot of things he says I disagree with. I have never heard him saying anything that advocates rape. Advocating enforced monogamy is not advocating rape. It isn't. That went way too far. But still, if you're aware that you're mean, you live by the sword, die by the sword. You can't have it both ways. Now, this sort of segs into the people who completely ignored the actual question I was asking, like, first what I was saying, stop explaining the guy. I never said stop enjoying his work. I never said that. I said stop being a translation service. That is totally different. So I have no idea why people got so angry and you can do better. The guy's words have to rise and fall on their own. If you want to claim he is an effective communicator, he's somebody that should be paid to communicate. His ideas have to rise and fall on their own. You're not allowed to create the Jordan Peterson Talmud, which is a book of commentary longer than the original text. Like, that's just not how the public discourse works right now. He shouldn't be able to have that when no one else has. So the people who started arguing whether he was right or wrong or my specific disagreements with some of his ideas, you completely missed the point by telling me that I missed the point and misunderstood. The point is, let's go based on what, to the best of our ability, we can see he said. Do not ask me to add on or add endnotes or footnotes to things he said in a lecture 2 years ago or 6 months ago or 1 year ago. We don't know if he even feels the same way anymore. We have to look at what he said now, because one of his own rules is speak with precision. You should not need a friggin' course kit to understand a New York Times article. Same thing with the "why do you care so much there are only two genders" video. A lot of people privately agreed with me. I was not expecting to sell people on the 5 gender theory, which again is not mine. I learned about it from a Two-Spirit colleague, a First Nations Canadian. Oh no, they're not officially First Nations. They're Indigenous, but they're not one of the First Nations tribes. We have a lot of jargon for our Indigenous peoples in Canada. It's a very complicated, sensitive thing. But I didn't ask people what they thought. I asked people why they care so much. And ironically, there weren't very many people arguing in favor of the infinite number of bespoke pronouns theory. The hardliners, the extremists that decided you must be heard, were all there are only two, nope, two. They turned into those yip, nope, yip, yip, yip. They turn into gender yip yips. Because all they keep saying is science. It's like shot, science. It's like, I went through the science, like, nope, science. Well, yeah, but the science says it's more of a spectrum, less of a binary. Science. Intersex people, they actually aren't male or female, and they shouldn't require surgery to conform to a gender binary that doesn't. Science. Like, no, your science is unscientific in this argument. You are not arguing from a scientific perspective. This is classic Jonathan Haidt. This is The Righteous Mind. Great book if you haven't read it. People have a gut opinion. They believe something. And then they find the facts that back up their particular opinion and call that reason, when it's not actually reason. It's a posteriori rationalizations of your emotional opinion. And more we are finding that is what actually drives people's opinions and morals. You start with a feeling, and then you construct this scaffolding of logic around a feeling. So people just are very wedded to the feeling that there are only two genders, and they just dismiss any intersex person who is like, I don't want to have to chop off perfectly functioning body parts because my anatomy makes you uncomfortable. I just want a designation where I can be myself, all of myself. And that is a perfectly rational, scientific argument to me. We do not have to say that all genders are equally represented to say that a particular gender exists. Or sex exists. I mean, we're not even talking about gender at this point. We're talking about biological sex, right? I'm old school. I believe they're different because gender is a social role. whereas sex is what's your anatomy. But even on that level, post-op trans men do not have the same internal anatomy as cis men. Post-op trans women do not have the same anatomy as cisgendered women. I might have flipped that around. Apologies. Anatomically, they are not the same. And yes, if you want to go, wow, these are transhuman, because it sort of all comes from, do we have philosophically the right to absolute body autonomy, in that if we want to chop off parts and rearrange them and put a toe on our forehead, should we be allowed to do this? Or is this sickness that we should be protected against? And I come down, in this case, on the side of, if somebody wants to change their anatomy, who am I to say they shouldn't, as long as they are doing it from a totally individualized place and not because they're just conforming to peer pressure. Now, other people should go, no, we shouldn't let them do it for their own good. We should deny them their freedom. I see the rationale in that, even though I don't agree. But that's where we get into this, just because someone altered their anatomy, does that mean their anatomy doesn't count? Well, no, a doctor is going to encounter that anatomy. So the science argument is not so cut and dried. And that's why I go back to, why do you care so much? Because this is a very emotional thing. When you feel the need to leave a lengthy comment of why there are only two genders, when I think it's pretty clear right now you're not going to persuade me, that says a lot more about your emotional investment in the topic than anything I've said. And you didn't actually answer my question. You've explained yet again why you believe very strongly that there are only two genders, but you didn't explain why you care so much. Science is not a sufficient answer, because science is not simple on this point. So this is a moral thing. This is, in the beginning, God created man and woman. Like, there's some of that programming running in people's heads, you know? And the question is not, what do you believe? The question is, why you care so much? And people reasserted the fact that they care a whole lot by reasserting what they believe. That wasn't the question I asked. And that's very telling. Now, to the people that actually thought about it, well, you know what? You have a point. Bravo. And you're the ones I make these videos for. You are the ones that convince me that it is worth wading in on these unpopular topics, because you actually do want to know, you want to sample opinions so you can inform your own. And let me tell you, I'm not saying I feel I'm right, because I don't believe there's a right and wrong here. These are defining social roles, and those change from culture to culture, from era to era. I'm just saying this is the finite structure that is the most practical and makes the most sense for me, because I accept that there is scientific evidence that a rigid gender binary is not servicing 100% of the population. But there also has to be some practicality, some limitations, so language retains meaning. We can't just make up an infinite number of genders or dozens and dozens of genders that no one can remember. I mean, shit, I could barely remember the Vandertamp verbs in French. Like, you're asking me to remember 42 different gender pronouns? That's just not practical, right? This isn't about right or wrong. This isn't about a person's particular journey of self-discovery. This is just about practical discourse. And like I said, I don't really have to argue against the people who believe in an infinite number of genders, because they don't seem to watch my content. Good to know. Okay, so moving on to the Deadpool thing, I want to address in the time I have left before I hit the half-hour mark. This, and I didn't know this was so big when I made the first video, or I would have spent more time on it. The idea of the women in refrigerator, oh my God, bad, the movie's terrible, hate response some people have had to Deadpool 2. I am stunned that this is actually a thing, because I felt, while avoiding spoilers to a point, I felt the movie did a really good job of going, no, really, guys, we know this is bad. Like, we know, we're horrible, we're awful, we get that this is a bad thing. They were spoofing something that's overused in comic books, right? Like the woman in refrigerator syndrome. That term, come on, camera focus, there we go, comes from a Green Lantern comic. And that was just the point where people are like, oh, that's just gratuitous. And it sort of shined a light on, Gail Simone came up with the term. I love Gail. The whole idea is it was overused. And she sort of documented how often it was done. And therefore, because it is an accepted, overused comic book trope, it is totally fair game for parody in a movie that is a break the fourth wall whenever possible parody of comic book cliches. Do I have to say, I cannot believe this debate got that big. I cannot believe it. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in an alternate dimension where everything's kind of, idyllic, and I kind of live on Paradise Island in a world that makes relative sense. And every so often I have to leave the island and venture into the real world where everything is insane, because most of the time, 99.9% of the time, you guys are freaking great. You're logical, and yeah, everybody has emotional things and everybody gets upset about things, and sometimes we don't even know why. That's fine. That's human. No problem. But you guys are so much more grown ass than the internet as a rule. And I thank you for that. Crap. I forgot to plug the Patreon. I always do this. Sorry, I need to get better at doing this off the top. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com, Leanna K. Man, I am really surprised that no video this week got demonetized. And that kind of pisses me off, because if I want to talk about, I can't believe the gender thing didn't get demonetized. That's gotta be an accident. It still could if someone reports it. But I think it's horrible. It is a horrible system that, and I'm not saying I trash talked him, but if I wanted to, I could trash talk Jordan Peterson till the cows come home and have it monetized. But if I actually want to talk about the concept of enforced gender, and I label that, and I label that gender studies, boom, demonetized the minute it goes up. YouTube is encouraging people to attack people instead of attack ideas through their monetization. They call it an algorithm, but let's face it, it's a bullshit keyword search. This is not heightening the discourse. This is not raising the bar on how we talk about these things. I would much rather talk about specific ideas Jordan Peterson has and discuss the ideas and not attack him as a person. He's got a wife. He's got a daughter. His daughter apparently was very, very sick. I sympathize with him as a human being like this. I don't want to attack him as an embodiment of an ideal. I just want to talk about where I agree and where I disagree with his ideas. That is still respecting him as a person. And if those of you out there who think I can do better, think anyone can do better than that. If anybody can do better than disagreeing with someone and still see them as a human being deserving of respect, and there are still lines you don't cross, if you think that there's a way to do better than that, please let me know. Leave a comment, because I don't know what that is. That's about as good as I can do, because it's easy to respect somebody you agree with. It's hard to respect someone whose viewpoints make you feel attacked. And yeah, Peterson's viewpoints sometimes make me feel attacked, and I have to hold up, cool down. Let's address this logically. You think I can do better than that? I challenge you to show me how. So I'm going to do one more video on Monday next week just because somebody requested it. I'm going to shoot it now. But after that, I really have to knuckle down for Lady Bits episode 8. I actually have to dye my hair for it. So don't freak out if you see stuff here. It's just semi-permanent. It's going to grow out. I'm not like, it's just for character. But yeah, I do have to knuckle down and do that. But I absolutely promised someone, because it's too good to pass up. But yeah, I will be back for one more video tomorrow. Okay, thanks for not tomorrow, Monday. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.